Hey everyone, my name is Olaf and today I'm going to show you how to make this animation in Blender. It's going to be a fairly quick and easy tutorial. It's only going to last about 20 minutes and I think you will learn a lot of new techniques. So I think this is a really good tutorial for anyone who's a beginner or an intermediate. So let's get started. We're going to start this tutorial off by switching from blend render to cycles render. And then you want to click X to delete the default cube and then add a UV sphere. Then go into the settings on the right side, drag it, go into the modifiers, add modifier, and add subdivision surface and increase the view subdivision to 2 or even more if you want to, and increase it more on the render subdivisions. And then you want to go into smooth shading, and as you can see we now have a completely smooth and subdivided sphere. We will add some particles and make the emitted particles, or the number of emitted particles, to 5,000. Then make the end to 250 and the lifetime to 250 so that the particles last for 250 frames. And then we're going to change the emitter object values. On the x-axis first, if you click play, you will see that we can change the way the particles emit from the object. And I'm going to emit it on the z-axis, which is upwards, and on the x-axis. And I'm going to give it kind of a U shape or reverse U shape and make it fall down like this, which looks good, especially when you have more of these combined. So click S to scale, go back and click play. You can see it looks really good with the change in size. It's often really good to go to the last frame to restart the whole simulation or the particle animation. And the next step is to add a cube, which is going to be the emitter object. So go to create and add a cube, click G to grab, and select the particles again, or the particle object, and then scroll down to object and add the cube in the duplicate objects. And as you can see now, if we increase the size, we have a lot of new cubes. And in this tutorial it doesn't really matter what kind of object it is. I'm only adding the cubes because it looks cool. So you can obviously add some other objects to be emitted if you want to, and still be able to follow the rest of this tutorial. So I think the animation right now is really good. So I'm going to move the default cube to another layer. So click M to move it to another layer. And then click Shift D and then grab Y to grab it on the Y-axis. So GY to grab it on the Y-axis. And Shift D again and click GY to grab it on the Y-axis and move it to the other side. I'm going to have these set parent to the middle object. So click Control P to set a parent. Click Object. And now I'm going to click Shift A to add a new object, and I'm going to add a curve and a circle curve. So we need to scale it, click S to scale, and then I'm going to grab it on the x-axis. So click G, then X to grab it on the x-axis. Left click to confirm, and then I'm going to select the middle sphere, and then select the circle and click Control P and click Follow Path. And that way this object is going to rotate around the circle, like you see right now. But at about frame 120, it's going to suddenly stop. So we have to change the animation cycle for the curve. So we need to select the curve or the circle curve, then go into the curve settings, and we need to change the evaluation time. So you have to right click on the evaluation time. So right click and then click clear keyframes. And we're going to add some new keyframes. So clear keyframes, and then I'm going to go to frame 100 and change the value to 100 as well on the evaluation time. I click I to keyframe and go to frame 1. We're going to make the value to 1 in the evaluation time and click I to keyframe. And if you click animate now, you will see that the animation still lasts for 100 frames, but now it's a lot quicker. And we're now going to cycle this animation so that the circle animation lasts forever. So go into the graph editor, click T to change the interpolation to linear, and then add a modifier and add a cycles modifier. And that way the cycle animation or the circle animation is going to last forever. So if you go back to 3D view, go back to frame 1, where it should start at the end, and then make it start from the beginning. Now that we added the cycles modifier, the circle animation it's going to last forever. So you can actually make the end frame as high as you want, and it's still going to rotate forever. And that's really good for this animation, at least. Now, I think I'm going to tweak the set value on the particle emitter. So I'm going to scroll up to the emitter object and increase the set value to about 30. Because it's going to look a lot better when you have a high value on the z-axis. Yeah, I think it looks a lot better, so I'm going to keep it this way, and you can make it even higher if you want to. So, okay, let's click pause, and then scroll up to the top, and increase the emitted particles, and you can increase it even more if you want to. And I'm going to save it as well, so click Save As, and save it wherever you want on the computer. I'm just going to save it in my QParticles tutorial file, or folder, and then I'm going to start adding some materials and lighting to the scene. And in this tutorial I'm going to add lighting by adding suns. So we need to select the lamp first and make it into a sun. So right click to select the lamp and scroll to the top and make it into a sun. Increase the size to 1, use nodes, and then increase the strength to, let's say, 4. And then I'm going to grab it, so click G to grab a little bit away. It doesn't really matter that much where you grab it to. And click R to rotate, click G to grab it even more. And then I'm going to go to the top view, so click numpad 7 to go to the top view. Click Shift D to duplicate, left click to confirm, and I click R, then Z to rotate it on the Z axis. And this is going to be our second lighting. I'm going to increase the emission on this one, so increase it to 5. Then click Shift D again. This is going to be our background light. So click RZ to rotate it on the Z axis. Click G to grab it a little bit away, and then decrease the strength to, let's say, 2. Numpad 0 to go into the camera. Right click to select the camera. Click Shift F to go into the fly cam mode and move around with W, A, S, and D. So I'm going to move it away from the scene, or away from the particles itself, so that you get everything into the frame. Increase the end to make the camera look even further away. Click Tab to add some gravity to your camera in the fly cam mode. And as I told you, I'm going to get the whole particle, all the particles inside the frame of the camera. So you can either use the focal length or just move further away from the particles. So I'm going to go backwards. So S to go backwards. And I might animate the camera a little bit so that we can slowly move the camera away from the scene so that we can get everything inside the frame in the beginning. As you can see, sometimes the particle glitches a little bit. So either you need to go to the last frame and restart the animation, or you will have to increase the number of particles emitted from the objects. You might run into some problems a few times with the glitches with the particles and so on, but I think it's pretty easy to change it and make it work again. And usually I just go and select the emitter object again. So I'm going to select any of them, right click to select, and I go into the particle settings, and I might just increase the number of emitted particles. So I'm going to increase the number of emitted particles to, let's say, about Let's make it 20,000 and see how it goes. So go from the beginning again, click start, and let's see if the animation works now. And so far it looks good. I think we have a lot more cubes now to emit so that the animation works better. And you can also see that the gravity looks really good because it's kind of slow, and I don't know, it just looks really, it looks really pretty. Okay, I think everything works now. So if you just let it go to the last frame at 250, I think everything will be fine and we can start adding colors and fix the last things before we start animating this scene. And yeah, it looks really good. So the next thing I'm going to do is to first pause, and then I'm going to go into the camera. So click numpad 0 to go into the camera, and I'm going to start adding the materials we need. So first I need to increase the clipping end so that we can see far away. And then I'm going to click Shift Z to go into rendered mode, and you can now see the lighting working. And I'm going to select the cubes first and add a random color material to it. So select the cube and then go into the node editor. So you need to drag it down and go into node editor and then add a new material. You can do it both places, and then zoom in with the middle mouse wheel. Okay, I'm just going to grab it a little bit downwards so you can see better in the node editor. Okay, I'm going to zoom in, and then I'm going to delete the diffuse node, X to delete, and then I'm going to add a glossy node. So click Shift A to add a new node and writing glossy in the search box. And then connect it to surface. So BSDF to surface. And let's make the roughness to 0.15. Okay, and now we're going to add the random colors. So click Shift A again to add a new node. And I'm going to add a node called hue saturation. And we're going to connect the color to color. And then we're going to add a new node, which is going to give us a random value. So search object info and then connect random to saturation. If you connect it to hue, you're actually going to get completely random colors, but saturation is going to give it many different kinds of colors in the same color, if you get what I mean. If you make it red, you're going to get a lot of different shades of red. Instead of when you connect it to hue, you're going to get a lot of completely different colors. I actually have a random color tutorial, so if you want to learn more about this node setup, I have a tutorial for that. But I think in this tutorial, I'm going to make the colors to different shades of blue. So I'm just going to find a blue color that looks good. I think I'm going to make it more dark blue at the end, but you can make it whatever color you want. It's not going to result or change the results when you're done with the tutorial. So if you want to make it another color, you can make it another color, but I'm going to make it blue. And then I'm going to add a new material to the balls. You might want to test a few different colors and see what you like. You can make it glossy, make the roughness to, let's say, 1.5 or 0.15, and give it maybe a orange color. That might look good. But in my finished animation, I actually made it diffuse and added a blue color, which is what I'm going to do now. So diffuse, and I'm going to make the color blue because it's going to match the other colors. And then I'm going to apply this color to the other objects. So select the other spheres and add the material, and you might want to change the name so that you can actually recognize which material is which. And then I'm going to select the last sphere and add the balls material. Okay, I think it looks really pretty now. So let's just drag this node editor up, And let's finish off the animation and the last settings. I'm going to left click on the back of this sphere and add a new object. I'm going to add a plane. Click R, then X, then 90 to rotate it 90 degrees on the x-axis, and then click S to scale it up. And this is going to be kind of our background. You could just have the world background, but I think it looks better when you have an actual background. So I'm just going to scale it up, make it huge, and then add a new material. And now you can add whatever color you want on your background. So if you go to Shift Set, rendered mode, you could have for example, a blue background. But as you can see in my finished animation, I'm going to make the background dark at the end. So you might change the color. So I'm going to make it white and then drag it downwards to make a dark material, which I think looks really good, especially for like blue and light blue. Now, since I had to make this animation about 20 minutes long, I'm not going to go into details on other things you could do to make it look even cooler, like effects and other things, but I think it looks really good as it is, and I think I'm going to adjust the background a few times, and then I'm going to animate the camera so that it will start closer to the spheres in the beginning and then zoom out as the particles just fly out. As you could see, I scaled up the background with S, and then I'm going to go back to frame 1 and start animating the camera. So you need to right click on the camera to select it, and then click N to make the coordinates show up. So click N to make the coordinates show up, and then click I to keyframe. So click I, and I. And before I move forward in time, I want to see how far the particles shoot out so that I can adjust the camera accordingly. So I need to run the simulation again, or the particle animation again, and see how far they go. So let's click Shift F to move around with the fly cam, move around with W, A, S, and D, as always. And before you make the choice of actually starting the animation, you might want to try some different angles for your camera. So I'm going to move back a few times and just see what location I like the best. So moving backwards now, and I think we get the frame really well at this frame. So I'm going to make it 141, the end frame of this camera animation, and then click I, and I to keyframe this location. So the camera is going to move backwards in the beginning, and then after frame 141, it's going to stop and we're just gonna take a look at the particle simulation or animation without actually moving the camera, which looks good. So when we move past frame 141, the camera is going to stop, and yeah, I think it looks really good. Okay, so before I'm going to start editing the render settings and the animation settings, I'm going to remove the coordinates on the right side by clicking N, and then I'm going to click Shift Z to go into solid mode, and then I'm going to go up to File and save the file. So give it a new name so that you have two different files, and click Enter. So now I'm going to start editing the actual render settings. So go up to the camera icon, and then increase the resolution quality to 100%. Make the frame rate to 30. You can make it higher if you want to. Then make a folder for your output for the animation. So find a place on your computer where you want to save a lot of PNG finished render images for your animation. So make a new folder somewhere, and then select the folder and give the pictures or the animation a name. So I'm just going to call it dance animation. And then I'm going to scroll down to sampling, which is the overall quality of the lights and shading in the animation. I'm going to make it 200, which is going to look very good. And then I'm going to do a test render before I start the actual animation. So let's just see if let's just click render. And I'm going to speed up this render. And this is what it looks like when it's done rendering. You have already seen the animation, so you know what it looks like. But I'm just going to test it. Go back to 3D view. I ended up speeding up this part because I didn't actually do anything before I started the animation. So I'm just going to go up to the top and click animation. And you're going to get a lot of different PNG images, which you can turn into an animation at the end. And that's it for this tutorial. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments. And I hope you liked the video and subscribe. So thanks for watching and goodbye.